Here we go again. Monty Smokes It All. We're coming back at it with some smoked spare ribs, St. Louis style. Let's not take too long. Let's get back to the meat. But hey, if you got something cold to drink while you're watching, don't be afraid to enjoy it with me. So here we are with our spare ribs. We're going to go ahead and flip them over. So this right here is going to be your membrane on your ribs. Most people like to score it. Most people like to just rip it off. Some people just leave it, you know what I mean? But this video, we're going to go ahead and we're going to score this. And then we're going to take off the silver skin. So let's get to it. So to score, what we're just coming at is these little lines like this. Yep. We're just getting into that membrane. And then we're going to come back at a diagonal angle. And we're just going to keep on scoring. Then we're going to do the same thing to the second rib. And we're going to go ahead and score it. You know, come at it at diagonal. And then when we come back around, we're going to do the exact same thing. Right? Coming back at another diagonal angle. It's going to really get that exposure and really tenderize. And some people just pull it off, but this scoring is going to get it tenderized. And to me, it's going to go ahead and make it for a better bite. Because if you take this off, you run the chance of hitting some fall off the bone ribs. And you know, that's not what we're shooting for. We're shooting for ribs that are cooked, not overcooked, and then have a good bite to it. So we're just going to go ahead and move some of this silver skin off. And then this right here, this piece is just going to burn. So we're going to go ahead and cut that off right here. Just going to keep working our meat, get the cut that we want. Because that part will just burn. And then you got that on a piece of your rib and you bite into it, it is not going to taste that good. And here we are just taking off this silver skin, this fat that really is not going to, it's not really going to render. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. Then we're going to move this rib down. Boom, it's off. And you see kind of where this rib splits. There's no bone right here. So we're going to go ahead and cut that off too. Square off our ribs. This rib is done. So I'm going to flip it over and bring this one back. And look at all this fat right here. This is not going to be good for your cook. So I do advise you to take it off. And right now, what kind of knife I'm using, this isn't just a regular kitchen knife or chef's knife. This is a boning knife. With the chef's knife or any other kind of knife, this right here, it's really light in the blade. So let's say, you know, you don't have the best cutting skills. If it does come and hit your finger, it is not going to cut it. Because trust me, with everybody who's watching this channel that knows me and has me on different social media, I have cut my fingers a lot of time using the wrong knives. And then again, right here, you see that split? There is no rib bone right there. So we're going to go ahead and cut it off. Kind of feeling the meat, making sure I know where to cut exactly. Then I'm going to flip these over. That's what your ribs are going to look like when it's fully trimmed. But then as I'm just working my meat, look at that. That's just going to burn. It's not really attached to anything. Gone. So just go through and feel your meat. Figure out if you need to cut anything. But no, these are perfect. We're ready to season. So let's get to it. All right, guys. Now it's time to season our meat. We're going to keep it OG, at least for Texas. And more specifically, SPG, salt, pepper, garlic. So we got our salt, pepper, garlic right here, my own concoction. Really simple to make at home. I'm gonna go ahead and get these ribs. So right here, you know, you want to come up from high up. It's gonna separate, and it's gonna evenly disperse your seasoning. We're just gonna get a nice, good layer all throughout these ribs. And this is a dry rub we're using. Called a dry rub, but we're gonna pat this in when we're done. So you see right here, we're gonna go ahead and pat. Get a little bit more on the edges. My fiance is gonna kill me, but like I said, there's always gonna be a mess before the masterpiece. Oh yeah. These ribs are gonna be nice and seasoned. OG Texas style. We are known for the salt, pepper, and garlic. We're gonna go ahead, you know, don't forget to pat this in. I'm not too content on this one right here, so we're gonna hit it with a little bit more. And with what's falling down, we're just gonna hit the sides of our ribs before we flip it over. Can't forget to season the sides of your meat. And if it's not up to my standard, you know, we'll definitely go ahead and get these sides done, seasoned and all. And just come back over the top as high as you can, so you get your spices evenly dispersed on your meat. Get a nice layer. Now on to our second rib. They got an old saying. I don't know where it originated from. I don't know if it was out here from Texas or whatever, you have it. But if you ain't sneezing, you ain't seasoning. So let's just go ahead and get a little bit on these sides. See all that seasoning missing from these sides? That's why we're just going back and getting this season on there. Yeah, if you can see that right here, it's not seasoned to my likings. So we're gonna hit it again. Make sure we get all that. All right, after you've seen me fighting with these ribs, trying to get them seasoned, throwing up, we're just gonna come back around one more time, a very light little season on the top to make sure we get all that goodness on there, get everything covered. Because when you're flipping it, your seasoning is falling off. And I want a good, nice, thin layer. Now that we got our ribs in a little tin foil, we're gonna go ahead and throw this overnight in the refrigerator. What that's gonna allow it to do is really bring the moisture out of these ribs and then our seasonings to soak back in. Honestly, if you're in a time crunch, after you prepare your ribs, go ahead and prepare them, season them, and in 20 to 30 minutes, I think you can get away with that. But just because we have time, we're gonna go ahead and throw them overnight and we'll cook these back in the morning. Your barbecue will always come out the best at its peak when you have time to prepare, but way before the cook. But yeah, in the morning, we're gonna go ahead and throw these on the Weber kettle and smoke them. All right, guys, we got our setup going and we got our ribs on standby. Look at that. So, little quick redo of our setup. We got our fire divider, we got our chimney starters, and then we got our chimney with a couple of briquettes in there. So let's go ahead and get started. Like that. Catches like nothing. Go around, get to the other side. I'd say about now we'll go ahead and put in our chimney starter, get it going. We're set up for indirect cooking. If you look again right here, we got our hickory wood. Hickory is great for pork. We're about to throw on some St. Louis style spare ribs. All right, guys, we got our coals lit. Threw them in our pit basket that the coals weren't lit. We got hickory in there, and we're gonna talk about this little aluminum that's in here. This is a water pan. Poured a little bit of water, you know, working with what we got. We had to cut a little bit off the top because it wasn't fitting in our 22-inch Weber kettle. But about the water pan, we have a little bit of water in there. Anytime I'm gonna smoke anything 3 to 4 hours, 5 hours, anything 3 and above, we're gonna add a water pan, because what it's gonna do is it's gonna create a humid environment and it's gonna keep your meat moist. We got our fire nice and hot, ready to go. So we're gonna go ahead and close the grill, let it get up to temp, and then clean off our grill grates. And then we'll be able to throw our ribs on there and smoke them low and slow. Here we go, a quick little beginner tip. If you're smoking on a Weber kettle or anything like it, right here controls your vents on the bottom. If you put it right here, that's gonna decrease all the airflow. And then if we take it all the way to the right, it's gonna open it. There's 3 blades on the bottom where the vents are. And for right now, while we're just getting up to temp, we're gonna have it wide open. And then once we start smoking and we're at the temp that we want, we'll just go ahead and close it all the way down just to maintain that temp throughout the whole cook. Because when the oxygen comes up, it ignites the coals even harder, and then they get on a higher temp. So if you got it closed, you're decreasing the oxygen that comes up, and it'll stay at that temp. You open it, you're increasing the oxygen, hitting the coals, and it's gonna get hotter. So here we are, guys. You see that smoke starting to get more translucent, that clean kind of bluish tinted smoke. So we're gonna go ahead and throw our ribs on. Got our water pan and all that good jumbo. And then just real quick, I have this independent digital thermometer. I just decided the temp's gonna drop because we took off the lid, but we got it up to 235 and I'm ready to throw the meat on. But we got this little individual thermometer just to kind of see, depending on what our grill temp says, and then this independent thermometer, you know, this is a little bit more accurate. So we're gonna go ahead and roll with this. You know, I do suggest to go get one. You can get a cheap one on Amazon for like anywhere from $13 to $25. And this is really gonna get you a lot of help on reading your things accurate, your temps and all that good stuff. And then it has a couple little holes where you can put more probes and then probe your meat. And we're gonna go ahead and throw our ribs on. Here we go, guys. The most glorious part, putting the meat on the pit. We got our probe on with our digital thermometer. And just to talk a little bit about the ribs, kind of the procedure we're gonna go ahead and do. I'll probably check on them in 2 hours. Then maybe spritz them with some apple cider vinegar. Then we'll close it up for another hour. Take a look at them, see if we want to wrap them, see if the bark is set, see if the color's there. And then if they're good to go, we're gonna wrap them, throw them on there for a little bit longer until that internal temp hits anywhere from 190 to 200. And let's get it low and slow. And then more or less on the time estimations, they're not exact times. That's not what we run on. We run on looks and internal temp more than a time schedule. And you'll get that with more repetition and the more experience you get. Here you go, guys, a little expert tip right here, just in case we need to throw more wood chunks in there, get a little bit more hickory smoke in there. We got a couple of hickory chunks preheating on the Weber kettle. Just if you don't preheat them, they're going to take a long time to ignite in that firebox, and when you preheat them right here, they're going to get nice and warm, and when you throw them in that firebox, they're not going to light instantly, but they're going to catch way faster than if you just throw them there on cold. So here we are, guys. It's been about 2 hours. We lifted the lid, so the wood's going to catch a little bit more, but our bark has set. So we're going to hit it with this little concoction right here. It's about half apple cider vinegar, half water. We're just going to keep the moisture in. We're going to hit a little light mist, you know, get your ribs. The bark has set though, so this is not going to wash away any bark. We're going to keep them nice and moist. You don't want your ribs to dry out. That's why we've taken extra precautions with the water pan, and then also this concoction right here. So in about, I want to say an hour, give or take, we're going to go ahead and wrap these boys up. But until then, we're going to go low and slow. And then we'll be back hopefully in an hour. But like I said, this thing really isn't an exact time measurement. It's more or less on how they look. All right, guys, it's been probably about 3 hours around there. If you look at our handy dandy digital thermometer, we've been sitting at that 230 mark this whole cook. We really haven't been opening the lid to check, you know, just at certain points when we got to do different steps, but it has been holding at that 230. Our fire management is great. We have our lower vent set up to where we need it to be. We have our higher vent set up to where we need it to be. I would say it's probably 1/4 opened, and down here 1/4 opened as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at these ribs. This is at 3 hour mark. This is where we find out if we're ready to wrap. And the reason why we haven't been opening it every like 15-30 minutes to check, because if you're looking, you probably ain't cooking. So by keeping the lid on, you're keeping the heat, you're keeping the smoke, all that great stuff. So, you know, just over time, believe in yourself, have that confidence that you are set up for the best success through your prep, because once you keep lifting off this lid, then that's going to hurt your cook, because if you're looking, you're not cooking. So look at that bark right there. That bark is pretty much set, and I'm gonna say it's pretty good to wrap. We're gonna go ahead and wrap. So guys, we got our wrap set up. We're using this pink butcher paper. Some people like to use foil. I like to use both, but we're gonna go ahead and just use the butcher paper today. And even some people, they love to not wrap theirs, and more power to them. It's all how you like your meat. There's multiple different methods, and we can get into that at a later video. I can do some crazy ribs for you with all the different kind of crazy setups, but right now we're just spraying this with apple cider vinegar and the water, and then we're gonna go ahead and wrap them. So guys, it's a little windy today. Also, when you're wrapping these, you can also put a little bit of honey, put a little bit of butter, and then more seasoning, but we're keeping it OG like we said. Just very traditional, spraying it with apple cider vinegar, wrapping it up nice and tight, and then also spraying your paper with that apple cider vinegar, like really conforms your paper and really rolls nice, and you can be able to roll it tight. All right, guys, we got our ribs back on the pit. If this little loose part bothers a lot of y'all can go out and get some butcher tape as well for this butcher paper. But you know, the pink paper does let your ribs breathe a lot more than foil. But you know, I'm fine with this because we're gonna close the lid and not open it until roughly around 2 more hours. So just to make sure we keep our temperature true and to the right color, I already have some warmed up briquettes that we're going to add back onto here, along with some hickory wood chunks. I'm going to go ahead and add those briquettes. Boom. Next is the wood chunks. And be very careful when you're throwing these in there. See, because that kind of burnt me a little bit. But I've been messing around with this grill and stuff. Do not be afraid to use your tongs. I've just done this for a little bit, so handling this heat is not too much of a biggie. We're gonna get our fire back going, back up to that 225 to 250, and then we'll be back. All right, guys, it's about that time. You look at our handy dandy thermometer. We're still pulling that 230 throughout 5 hours of cooking. And then we have the second probe right here. We're gonna go ahead and probe our meat. You look at that ribs, that butcher paper, it's letting it breathe, let all the moisture come out, and we're just gonna go ahead and start poking. With the bones, you gotta kind of find the sweet spot. We're at about 198. So we're gonna go ahead and pull some off, and then we're gonna hit it with this sauce. So guys, we're right here. If you look at this butcher paper, it's letting your meat breathe. We already got put in our second probe. This right temperature is our meat. It's about 199. We were aiming for 199 to 200. So we're gonna go ahead and pull them off. All right, guys, we got our first rack off the grill. You look at that. Look at all that juice right there, baby. Low and slow. Check this out. Check this out. Look, we got the bone pull. Ooh, that's kind of hot. That's really hot. We got our bark set. So right here, for everybody who likes the sauce on their ribs, we'll hit it with this mop real quick with some sauce. Oh yeah. We're gonna leave one rack without the sauce, one rack with the sauce, and we'll both see how these end up. Get you that nice sauce. Right now we're running with some traditional Texas barbecue sauce. You can go pick it up at your local H-E-B. It is that nice H-E-B brand. We're just gonna hit it with that sauce. Get it low and slow. Man, those are some pretty ribs. We got the pullback right here. All right, guys, we got both of our racks of ribs off our grill. This is the one that we got with our little sauce. This was the one without the sauce. This one right here, we put it back on the grill for about 10 minutes, let that sauce caramelize. You see that bend test right there? That's how you know they're nice and tender. So we're gonna go ahead and let these racks of ribs rest for about 30 minutes, and then we'll come back and slice it up. All right, guys, look at that bark. It's been resting about 30 minutes. And we're gonna go ahead and cut into them. All right. The rest is very important to get your juices back in your meat as much as possible. And right now, we're about to just go ahead and take a little cut. Look at these ribs, got a faint little smoke line. There we go. Now we're going in for the taste test. Look how juicy that is. All that juice soaked back into that meat. All right, let's go for it. This is that salt, pepper, garlic. Give you that original taste. Very tender, but has a great bite to it. Y'all stay tuned. We're going to keep going. Next, little spoiler alert, we're going to get some tri-tip in. That's an unknown treasure to Texas. And that's what we got up next. Just a little look back at our ribs. That nice smoke ring. Nice and tender. There we go.